I'm about to tell you what really happens when you mix Edgar Allan Poe, a crumbling cellar, and a woman who's had enough. Trust me, you've never heard a renovation story like this.
Freddie's hands were already dirty when I arrived at the cellar, and something dark stained the cuffs of his shirt. "You're late." He did not turn. His voice was sharp tonight. I was starting to worry. The cellar door clicked shut behind me with a finality that made my skin crawl. The cellar air was cold and wet. I checked my phone. No signal down here. I tucked the bottle of Cabernet under my arm and pulled the collar of my cashmere sweater tighter. The air hung thick and stagnant, a cloying mix of mildew and something metallic that coated the back of my throat. I made a mental note to find a scent to mask it when showing the house. He gestured to a pile of clothes draped over a rickety chair. Costume change. Gotta get in the mood. I eyed the garments. A long, dark skirt, high-necked lace blouse, and severe bonnet. Excessive, even for Freddie. The fabric looked stiff and yellowed. Is this really necessary? I set the wine next to the chair, the glass bottom scraping against splintered wood. Had Freddie raided the University Theater costume archive again? He turned to me at last. Necessary? No. But fun? Absolutely. Besides, he studied the rusted trowel in his hand, turning it over, testing its weight. The metal edge was sharp enough to cut through bone. He ran his thumb along the edge. Kidding. Just mortar. It adds to the authenticity of the narrative. My shirt stuck to my back. Sometimes Freddie's charm veered a bit too far into creepy territory. Still, his obsessions came in handy once in a while. The tale I'd spun about Edgar Allan Poe riding the raven in this broken-down house, it had been nothing but a way to convince him to invest. I picked up the bonnet, the stiff fabric scratching against my skin like dried leaves. Narrative? I wriggled into the lace blouse. The musty fabric clung to my skin. Hopefully, Freddie wouldn't notice if I kept on my gloves and riding boots. Accuracy be damned. My toes were already numb. Freddie's posture stiffened. A drop of water splatted nearby, cold as it hit my cheek. The cellar seemed to hold its breath. I clenched my teeth, not only for my investment, but for what he would do if he lost his. This isn't just some hobby for me, Liza. Our situation depends on this going smoothly, and your cost-saving measures are making me nervous. Neither of us spoke. Had I pushed too far? He stepped closer. The lantern light danced across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw, the tightness around his mouth. A muscle twitched beneath his eye. He looked controlled. Is that all you think this is, Liza? A cheap renovation? Isn't it? My voice came out smaller than intended. Hiding this from your wife. I gestured around the cellar, encompassing the clothes, the whole scheme. And what else is it, Liza? Tell me. He stepped close to me, too close. His breath was hot on my face, smelling of coffee and something sour. My neck prickled, every hair standing on end. He'd insisted we work late after the construction crew left. Privacy, he'd said. I couldn't look at him when he said it. I swallowed, the motion painful in my constricted throat, trying to regain control. It's a business venture, a way to make money. If all goes well, the kind of money I've only dreamed of. He reached out, his fingers brushing my cheek. I had to catch myself against the wall. His fingernails were ragged, dirt caked beneath them. More than just a business venture, Liza. At least adding a wine cellar will bring in more buyers. I stepped away, my heel catching on uneven stone, and hoped my smile didn't look phony. My cheeks ached from the effort. Freddie gestured to the bottle buried beneath my pile of discarded clothes. Speaking of wine, he watched me with an intensity that made my skin tighten. We just need to sell this place. Fast, then we'll celebrate. Before my wife notices, the money is even missing. I thought you paid cash. The question came out sharp, cutting through the dank air. He'd confessed so quickly. It was infuriating. Pulling the scratchy skirt over my legs, the fabric like sandpaper against my thighs. Unease tightened my stomach into a hard knot. The house is only in your name, he reminded me, fingers drumming against the brick. Smart for taxes and privacy. My mouth went dry as dust. I clocked the lie in the way his jaw tightened, tendons straining beneath his skin, in the way his hand moved towards his pocket. What did he have down there? The corkscrew? After a moment, he didn't answer right away. Right. Freddie clapped his hands with forced cheerfulness. The sound echoed like gunshots. Well, no point in standing around. He gestured to the half-finished wall. We need to get the brickwork completed. He bent to load the trowel, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. I got the mortar mixed. He peered closely at the pale gray glop. It's period appropriate, supposed to make the new bricks blend in seamlessly. The smell of lime burned my nostrils. His last research assistant had left in mid-semester. Family emergency, he'd said, but her office was still as she'd left it. I'd touched her coffee mug, still sitting on the desk, a ring of mold inside. Period appropriate mortar. I tested the weight of a brick. I'd searched for hours last week at my favorite architectural salvage yard before finding them in a pile under a rotting cupola. Running my fingers along the old walls, I noticed scratches, deep gouges in the stone, like someone tried to claw their way out. My fingernails ached in sympathy. All right, where do you want me? Freddie pointed to a narrow gap behind the wall, a space wide enough for one person to squeeze through. I need you to get in there and I'll hand you the bricks. It's a tight fit, but it's the only way to get to that back section. My pulse quickened. He'd know how many bricks it would take to seal someone in. He'd calculated it for his lecture. The thought of being trapped behind a wall, in the dark, with Freddie, my throat constricted as if invisible hands were already squeezing, but I pushed it aside. Are you serious? I flung my right arm at the half-finished brick wall, as enthusiastically as my fitted 1840s dress would allow. The gesture made my shoulder burn. You want me to crawl into that hole? Come on, Liza. Don't be such a drama queen. It's just for a few minutes. Freddie studied my outfit, and it's part of the narrative. Narrative. He was either delusional or playing me, and I suspected it was the latter. I needed to make sure he couldn't trap me behind the wall. My palms grew slick with sweat inside the gloves. Authenticity, Liza, is everything. Now, we don't have all night. The sooner we finish this, the sooner we can... He trailed off, his eyes darting towards the stairs. I took a deep breath, the musty air filling my lungs like wet cotton. trying to calm my racing heart. The pulse in my neck throbbed against the high collar. I couldn't let him see anything. Fine. I turned towards the gap in the wall, steeling myself for the darkness and the unknown. As I started to squeeze through, the rough brick scraped against my skin through the dress, leaving what felt like 1,000 tiny cuts. The space compressed around me, pressing on my chest, making each breath a struggle. The air inside felt even colder and damper, like being wrapped in a wet shroud. Moisture beaded on my skin. Outside the gap, I heard Freddy's rhythmic breathing. Too close, too loud. All right. My voice echoed in the confined space. Hand me the bricks. Freddy started passing them through, one by one. Each brick was heavier than the last, my arms trembling with the effort. The rough surfaces tore at my gloves. With each brick, the gap between us grew smaller, the darkness more complete. I couldn't breathe. The walls felt too close. Almost done. He passed me the last brick. Almost done with the wall, or almost done with me? Okay, I'm ready to come out. My voice cracked, throat raw from the dust and fear. There was a pause. He didn't answer. Still didn't answer. I made fists. Freddy, I'm ready to come out now. A presence filled the small space. The air shifted, warmed. Freddy had somehow squeezed in, his body pressed against mine. The heat of him was suffocating, his chest crushing against my back. Had I miscalculated? But then his hand found my face, fingers rough against my jaw, and he turned my head and kissed me. Just like before. His body pressed me hard against the brick. For a split second, I fought it, every muscle tensing, the cold reality of the situation clawing at me with sharp fingers. But the game was stronger. We were our roles now. Liza. His breath was on my neck, his voice hoarse. Did you think I was going to hurt you? After all of this? My shoulders dropped. He wasn't going to hurt me. Not yet. Not tonight. My knees almost buckled. Ouch! These clothes are so itchy. I fussed with the bonnet and pouted, changing the mood. The lace collar was like a noose around my throat. I felt safe now, almost certain. Why couldn't he have stuck with last week's dress? Freddy must have charmed his way into the costume collection. Someone in the theater department would remember. Hey, would you mind grabbing that bottle of wine I left by my clothes? I could use a drink. I tried to swallow, but couldn't. I fumbled in the dark corner, my fingers numb and clumsy, searching for a pair of thin, tarnished tin cups. The metal was ice cold to the touch. Freddy had insisted they were Poe-era, though I swore they made everything taste kind of off, like old pennies and wrong on the tongue. He returned, uncorked bottle in hand, and I presented my dented cup. My hand trembled. Freddy filled it with wine. The liquid glugged. He watched me drink with an intensity that made the hair on my arms stand up. Finish it. His voice was gentle. I opened it just for you. The tiniest sip of wine hit my tongue, sour, with an undertaste that made my teeth ache. Why did you buy the extra bricks, Liza? I had to swallow twice. First, he questioned my cost-saving measures. Now he harped on me buying too much. New owners might want to fully brick up the wall. Not everyone appreciates recreating the interior design of a story like The Telltale Heart as much as you do. I brought the cup to my lips again, the metal edge cutting into my bottom lip. I didn't drink. Actually, Liza, this brick wall is more like the Cask of Amontillado, Freddie said, in his charming Professor Freddie tone, complete with the subtle hint of condescension that drove all the naive co-eds wild. Remember? That was the topic of my lecture the first day we met. I'm surprised you've forgotten. I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. I'd thought we were both after the money. And a relationship. Silly me. The Edgar Allan Poe connection was just my key to convincing him to invest. A necessary little lie. But now, this Poe obsession felt unsettling in this damp, claustrophobic tomb. The walls felt too close. I glanced at my watch. I'll arrange the extra bricks in an aesthetic pile, interior designer's prerogative. I took the smallest sip of wine. It burned going down, leaving a bitter trail. It was cheap and acidic, but it grounded me. Freddie's face clouded over, shadows deepening the hollows of his cheeks. Student Liza, you're an interior design student? The correction stung like a slap. It hurt more than it should have. My face got hot. I hated being reminded that I wasn't quite where I wanted to be, still clawing my way up the ladder while Freddie had his wife's money. Right. The word stuck in my throat. I saw the flicker of regret in his eyes, the understanding that he'd poked a sore spot. Don't look so crestfallen, babe. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was clammy, fingers tightening around mine like a vice. His touch sent confusion through me. You have an amazing eye, Liza. You're going to be a sensation someday. The compliments came on a little thick, syrupy sweet, but I leaned into his words despite myself. I needed reassurance that I wasn't throwing my life away on this crazy scheme. You say that because you need me to make this place look like it's not about to collapse. Freddie leaned in with a soft kiss. His lips were chapped, tasting of wine and lies. No, I say it because it's true. You're brilliant. We're both under a lot of stress. I just dumped over $200,000 on that contractor for the remodel. He was right. He had paid for the whole remodel up front, and this whole thing was a lot. More than I was comfortable with. The weight of it pressing on my chest, especially since he'd all but confirmed he'd dipped into the charitable trust to make it happen. Another brilliant Freddie move. What if she finds out about us? She won't. I won't let her. His words should have been comforting, but they sounded more like a threat. A threat to his wife? Or to me? The hair on my arms stood up. The wine was working its magic. Warmth spread through my limbs like molten lead. I needed to escape this cellar, to get away from the damp that seeped into my bones and the darkness that pressed against my eyes. I think we've had enough of this. I dumped the rest of my red wine onto the dirt floor. It soaked in, leaving a stain like old blood, and squeezed past Freddie. His body heat radiated against me as I passed. He didn't try to stop me. He just swayed, watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes. He looked sick, beads forming on his forehead and upper lip, his face pale as old parchment. He spoke, but his words were unintelligible, tongue thick in his mouth. What's wrong, Freddie? You don't look so hot. My voice was all sympathy, His face changed. Liza, what's happening? He doubled over. I smiled. A cold, hard smile I couldn't suppress, lips stretching tight across my teeth, and slipped past him into the cellar. He moaned again as the pain became unbearable. My gloved hands were steady, no tremor as I moved. I grabbed a trowel and started scooping up mortar, the wet mixture cold and grainy between my fingers, plastering it onto a brick. The scrape of metal on stone set my teeth on edge as he continued to moan. He would stop moaning soon. He tried to speak, but only a gurgling sound came out, wet and horrible. I kept building the wall, sealing him in, each brick a small victory. My shoulders burned with the effort. My dress clung to me, damp with sweat. I decided it this afternoon, during our little session in his office, when Freddie lied about the grad student. The pretty, flushed redhead I'd seen lingering in the hallway when I arrived, her perfume still clinging to his jacket, sweet and floral. If I killed him now, before he could break things off, at least I'd still have the house. You'll be happy to know I was paying attention that day in class, when you were talking about the murders in the Rue Morgue. The arsenic I put in the wine. It's very period appropriate. As the last brick slid into place, I paused. Only a little light remained, seeping through the gaps in the mortar. I listened for any sound from Freddie, but he was finally silent. Authenticity, Freddie, is everything.
Thank you for listening to Poe Cellar by Tara Casey. Copyright 2025.